The most important aspect for me for any film is the story. The lighting, the cinematography, directing, those can all be bad in my opinion, or lacking. But if the story's bad, then I think the film just won't work. My favorite structure to describe stories is Michael Haig's 6-stage structure. It recommends timestamps in the film where a hero must encounter certain turning points that carry them through 6 different stages. These turning points mark literal events in the story that gradually transform the hero, who's the main character, from their identity to their essence. Haig has worked out these turning points to what he believes to be the optimal points in the story to maintain audience attention and engagement. Well-placed turning points also help to achieve a coherent and linear progression of the story, all the way from the beginning of the journey to the end. Although the 6-stage structure is a very helpful guide, it's not the end-all be-all for a film. It doesn't follow it to a T. At its core, the 6-stage structure is simply a tool to help filmmakers tell their story. It's been proven time and time again to excite and entertain audiences. Although I'm a huge fan of this story structure, I don't want anybody to think that it's like the Bible of storytelling or anything like that. It's just one of many tools that a filmmaker should have in their toolbox. Also, my favorite stories just so happen to follow the 6-stage structure or similar structures pretty closely, and I personally believe that some of the top-rated films of all time do as well. So I think this structure, there's something to it. But there are plenty of examples of stories that deviate from this structure and are still successful, and people still love them. And this short film I'm about to present drives that point home, I think. A story at its core is simply a recounting of past, present, or future details, and that's it. It doesn't require a setup, a struggle, or a climax. In fact, the only thing a story really needs is a sequence of occurrences. However, setups, struggles, climaxes, conflict, those all things help with engaging audiences, so they are normally considered critical aspects of a story. Since Recommended for You contains those elements, I chose to break it down with Haig's structure. Before I discuss the film, I'm going to give a brief overview of Haig's 6-stage structure. Michael Haig is a brilliant story consultant, and he's worked with many famous directors, producers, actors. He is on the American Screenwriters Association and has coached many of the major film Hollywood studios. He offers many free resources on his website, which is www.storymastery.com. I highly recommend watching and reading about his methods because I think they're extremely helpful in understanding how to write successful stories. The 6-stage structure describes 5 turning points that carry the hero through 6 different stages of the film, and the turning points mark key changes in the character in their struggle to evolve from their old identity to their new essence. The hero's essence is their transformed existence, one where they conquer their fear or solve some problem that the story is about. Their identity is who they are at the beginning of the film, and they're normally stuck in some way. They may not realize they're stuck, but they are, and it takes the first turning point to show them that they are. The first turning point is the opportunity. It's the inciting event of the transformative journey the hero is going to take and carry through all the way to the end of the film. They are either going to take this journey or be taken on this journey. The journey is typically both an inner and outer journey. The outer journey is beating the bad guy or getting the girl. The inner journey is one that changes fundamentally who the character is. It changes their essence. The character may be willing or unwilling to begin their journey, but whether they like it or not, they are going on it and they're headed towards some transformation in the end, for better or for worse. It's recommended by Haig to present the opportunity around the 10% mark in a film. From 1 to 9% is something called the setup. The setup is simply the character in their ordinary life before the opportunity happens. Sometimes they are stuck in some way and the opportunity presents a way for them to break out of being stuck. That's a typical format. Having the hero be stuck, and I mean not going anywhere or having some mental problem or something like that, helps with generating conflict. Conflict is a great thing because it engages audiences and makes them interested to see which side of the conflict is going to win out. The second turning point is called the change of plans. Something happens to the character that makes them think that pursuing this goal or the journey they're about to go on is not as easy as they first thought when they were presented with the opportunity. According to Haig, it's a good idea for the change of plans to happen around the 25% mark. The third turning point is the point of no return, and that's supposed to happen around the midpoint of the film. There, the character is making a bigger commitment to their goal, after which obstacles mount and things get really bad, and the hero almost gives up. The point of no return, as its name suggests, also marks the point of the story where there's no going back for the hero. Whether they like it or not, the hero is going to have to face their fears and continue their journey. The fourth turning point is supposed to occur around the 75% mark, and it marks the major setback for the character. When the major setback occurs to the character, it looks like they will never achieve their goal, and they're going to try to retreat back to their former identity. They're too scared to move on. The bad guy has really closed in at this point. It will appear that all hope is lost and the hero has given up, but after this turning point occurs, they will find the strength to continue and move the journey towards the climax. At the climax is where we find out if the hero succeeds or fails. The climax should happen around 95%, basically at the end of the film. This is obviously the most well-known turning point in pop culture. It marks the result of the inner and outer journey for the hero. All their efforts getting to this point pay off and they transform. The final turning point happens at the 100% mark, and it shows how the hero and their environment has changed. Alright, on to the film. In a short film, you have a very small amount of time to make a good impression. In a 5-minute short film such as this, it's 4 minutes and 27 seconds, but it's roughly a 5-minute short film. The opportunity must occur at the 30-second mark. So, from 0 to 30 seconds, you have to cram in a setup and the opportunity. So in a 5-minute short, there's only a brief amount of time to give the setup, showing the character in their ordinary life. In 13 seconds, Recommended for You shows Xavier in a cyber cafe working on his laptop. That's his ordinary life, we presume. And then something out of the ordinary occurs. Well, we find that someone using his Amazon account is possibly pregnant. We don't know who yet, but we know this is weird because Xavier makes a facial expression indicating that this is not something he normally sees. A mere 15 seconds later, we can infer that it's his wife who's pregnant, and Xavier's life is about to change forever. So, within the 10% allowance, this film achieved all it needed to. Also, it had a good look and good acting, so that got me hooked from the beginning. I felt very engaged 30 seconds in. The second turning point occurred about 2 minutes in, which was about a minute longer than the recommendation. Fortunately, the film keeps your attention with throwing new items and scenarios into the mix. It keeps showing Xavier with different items and how they help him in the day-to-day. Also, it helped move the plot forward by showing how the online store has the uncanny ability to kind of predict what Xavier is going to need in the near future. These things kept me engaged in the film, and I thought it was perfectly acceptable to have that minute delay from Haig's recommendation. Taking the time to show how the online store could predict your needs was also crucial so that the audience could understand the end of the film. In short, the film may delay a minute past the recommendation, but it doesn't just sit around letting you get bored. It keeps throwing new things at you. To understand the remaining turning points of the film, we have to understand Xavier's inner and outer journey, or the lack thereof. I actually believe Xavier had no inner and outer journey. He was presented with an opportunity to buy recommended items. The outer journey could be argued to be Xavier's pursuit to satisfy his curiosity or his and his wife's material needs, but I felt that wasn't the message of the film. There was no inner journey, no great fear of inner struggle Xavier had to deal with as the story progressed. Because there was no inner and outer journey, there really were no third or fourth turning points, as those turning points rely on the inner and outer journey. Again, Xavier's goal could have been to purchase items until financial ruin, but I just don't think that was the point of the story. The premise being, what if those recommendations on an online store weren't just recommendations, but things you needed to survive? The film contained typical elements from the 6-stage structure, such as mounting obstacles. The scene at the gas station was very well shot and very engaging, and it provided the necessary backstory for the pepper spray to make sense at the end. But there was no major setback for Xavier. There's no bad guy closing in on him that made him want to retreat from his journey back to his old identity. There was no point where all hope was lost. The climax clearly occurred when Xavier realized the pepper spray really wasn't intended for him. This occurred at the 87% mark, which was acceptably close to the 95% recommendation. The climax was well played and very engaging to watch. The message was very clear enough for me to know that what it meant that his wife's account was signed in and not his. It was also refreshing to watch a film that wasn't trying to be too obvious. It wasn't trying to hold my hand the whole way and tell me exactly what was going on. It gave you just enough information that leading up to the climax, you have that fear inside you that you know what's going to happen. The police lights and sad music were more than enough for anyone to understand what had happened. So many films nowadays are so dumbed down where they have to have a character that doesn't know what's going on. They gotta ask another character that explains it to them, which is really just exposition. There were a lot of great moments in this film and I was engaged the whole way through. At the same time, it lacked quote-unquote critical storytelling elements from the 6-stage story structure. I think it's important to understand that the 6-stage structure is great and all, but it's just a tool. It's one of many tools I think a filmmaker should have in their bag, but it's not the end-all be-all to what is a great film. Recommended for You kind of lacked an inner and outer journey for the character, and because of that, no real third or fourth turning points. But this didn't matter in the face of great production value, good acting, and a really great story and premise. I can't wait to see more from Ice Cream Entertainment. Thank you for watching and see you next time.